Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you a build that is not really it's good. I wouldn't recommend you use it, but it's just a fun set that I made after seeing Blaze Lifehammer's 20k health build video a few months ago. I figured that I could make a better one, and I finally have everything for the better build. Now here's the thing, the build is completely free-to-play friendly. If you watched Blaze Lifehammers, you'll know that his theme is the Fairy Kaya theme, which is not a free-to-play friendly piece of gear. Mine, however, is. Now, I will say the gear that I equip for my build specifically, I have an amulet that is a gauntlet amulet, or it's a pack amulet, but there is a free-to-play alternative that's actually not that hard to get, and I kind of just had it sitting around. So I guess without delaying any longer, let me equip the gear set. And you can see the health jump. 8,000 is like barely halfway on there. Let's pop the potion and see how much health we have. So we have 20,032 health. I can't even play around with getting it to 20k exactly because this build doesn't use a single health tier jewel. And that is another big difference that is seen in the Blaze Lifehammer 20k health build, is he uses tier jewels for health. I used mine for utility. So that's why I think this build is a little bit better, is because I have a lot more of that item card utility that will be able to stack buffs more in team gameplay. So let's get to the stats, and then I'll show you the gear and where you can get all the gear. So I am rocking 20k health, 154 damage, which is honestly not bad for this like crazy high health build. I'm rocking 66 universal resist and then 77 on fire and myth. And that is from shield pins on my hat and my boots. Accuracy, I have 16, which is perfect accuracy. You can see 15% is the amount necessary for like Zan the Bandit, while spells like Forest Lord need 10%. And I think this is something that's changing with the Darkmoor update. I think they're updating every Shad spell to have the same accuracy as like the regular spells. So that's something fun. Crit is super low. You get like no crit here. You do get a decent amount of block though, 722. You get a modest amount of pierce. I do have 2 pierce jewels socketed, but other than those pierce jewels, there's not really any other. There's like one other circle jewel, I think, where you could socket pierce, but you're not really looking for that sort of damage output with this. You do get perfect pip chance. You do also get 937 pip conversion, which is kind of sick. And then you get a little bit of shadow and a little bit of arch mastery. So let's get into the build exactly. And just a reminder, this is all free to play friendly. So you could make this build without spending money on like a bundle or on packs or anything. It'll just take a little bit of time. For that, I am running the Vibrant Hardback Helmet. And yes, this is technically a pack item, but there is the Forbidden Library Gauntlet, which you can farm. And so the technique I used for this was I would farm the dungeon or the gauntlet on the lowest tier. So I would bring in my max, and then I would bring in an alt account that was like a level 10 or something. I would have them both go in. I would do the gauntlet over and over and over again until I had enough reagents, and then I would do a max level run. I would solo the max level gauntlet run and then craft the gear at the end of that. Because if you know how the gauntlet works, a crafter appears at the end of the dungeon, kind of like the Wallaroo stuff and the Selenopolis stuff. But if you do the lowest tier gauntlet, you can only craft the level 50 gear. So you have to run the max tier gauntlet to craft the max gear, but you still get the reagents from the low tier. So you can farm it at the low tier just to get it done quicker. And then when you want to craft the gear when you have enough reagents, you can just run the max level once, and then you'll have the max level gear available. And just to simplify what I'm saying right now, I'm also running the Vibrant Page Treaders, which is the Forbidden Library boots as well. And those are where we're getting our shield pins. And they just give a ton of health, and they give a ton of resist and block and everything. And these are also the hat and boots that I'm running on just my normal build as well. For the robe, I am running the Stalker robe, which gives 2,300 health, which is really crazy, and then just a bunch of other decent stats. Compared to like the robe I usually use, it's a little bit more health, it's more pip, more block, you get less resist, less damage, so you get less offensive stats. But definitely really good for a build like this. And with Darkmoor coming out, this build will be easier to obtain because the 180 gear gives even more health. So I'll probably update this build with 180 because I might just get more resist and everything like that. But yeah, so for the robe, running Stalker deck, I have 2 storm accuracy pins going on, which gives me 21% accuracy. And that's mostly just for my energy blade. But also, I use Dark Winds, I use Windstorms and Storm Traps when I'm doing team combat where blades are covered or blades aren't allowed. So having the extra storm accuracy in case you get mantled or something is very good. Boots we went over, it was the Vibrant Page boots. For the wand, we are purely wanting a double square socket wand. I don't know how many are in the game, but like I know there's a lot of one sockets like the Aeon wand, but we need 2 for this build. And so the easiest one I had available was just the Xander Focus Staff, which I already had crafted for energy, and then you just slap 2 health jewels on that, and you get 1500 health. For the Athame, I am rocking the Bold Dream Reaver Knife. It gives a ton of health, and this is where you can see my first tier jewel isn't running health. I'm running the item card Sharpen for extra utility, but I am running the health jewel on the square socket, which is very important for this build. That is non-negotiable. You need the health jewels on the square if you want to achieve a build like this. Skipping over the amulet because this is the same thing as the Athame, we have the Bold Dream Reaver Ring, which is very good. It gives a lot of health, gives good pip chance, and then I also have a item card Potent instead of health. And this is where you could socket Pierce instead of damage, but I mean, that doesn't really matter for this build. And then, of course, the health on the square jewel. Now, the amulet is one of the big differences between my build and Blaze Lifehammer's. Now, yes, I am running a Crowns pack item, and that's just because it gives a lot of resist. But there is a free-to-play friendly version of this. Not exactly the same, but it is similar enough that it gets you, honestly, even more health if you wanted. So mine is the Nightmare Amulet. It gives 2 square sockets, which is the very important thing about this. A ton of resist, a good amount of block, and a ton of health. And the free-to-play alternative to this is the Eternal and Spirited Charm. It gives even more health, the same amount of block, a little bit more conserve, less resist, but it does give the 2 square jewels, and that is the very important thing. Reaver Ring, we know. The pet, I'm going to skip over because that's a very important piece. Mount, you don't need a stat mount. There isn't a stat mount that gives health. You could get the Mammoth Mini if you wanted for the outgoing. I would recommend socketing outgoing on these if you wanted that, but that doesn't really matter for this. For the decks, you just want a square jewel deck that also gives a lot of health. And so yeah, this isn't a Decathlete deck shenanigan. You can see the biggest health difference here in the Decathlete deck. The deck 6 gives 300 health, a tier jewel, and a square jewel. So I could get a little bit more health, like 300 or something. But no, I'm running the soccer deck. It gives good block, it gives good arch mastery, and of course the health square jewel, and a little bit of health on the deck. And just so there's no potion shenanigans, this is just a triple animus elixir that I had. Moving on to the final piece, and this is probably my most proudest piece of this set. And yes, I will be putting it in the kiosk if for some reason you want to try and make the pet. But let me show you something first. In the journey to make this pet and this build, what I went through. All of these pets, not including like these random Beast Moon ones, but all of these Kookaburras, this Triton, these 2 Rude Goblins, these were all in the journey to make this pet. And the pet is pretty awesome. It is a quad health proof Brace Defy pet. It's pretty sick. I love it a lot. It gives, I think, 468 health on the from the talents, or 463 health on the talents, which gets us barely over 20,000 health when you're not using any tier jewels. Now here's the thing, you don't exactly need quad health if you're running Eternals and Spirited, because you get, if we do some math here, you get about 170 health in difference. There's a 170 health difference between the Nightmare and the Eternal, and 170 covers one of these health talents. So like you could get a triple health talent pet running Eternal, and then you'll have 20k health still. And then you could put something else on the pet like Mighty, or yeah, even something that increases the health, which I forget what it is. So you can get Agility, you can get like Relentless, and that'll give you a little bit more health to work with. Now in Blaze Lifehammer's video, he is rocking a 14-7 pet. This is the closest thing I have, is a 13-7 pet. So I could get a little bit more resist, but I do lose out on my health. And I could make that up with Eternal and Spirited, and then using 1 tier jewel. I have one over here. Yeah, right here. Using 1 tier jewel ring. I think that should get me over. or at least a little bit closer. Like I would just suck it. I would just have an Athame with health as well. But that is not why we're here. We're here for the quad health proof pet, which took forever to make. Pretty much max stats. I'm missing just 1 power, which doesn't really do anything in terms of the health. The pool, I have no idea. There was one pet in the kiosk that had these talents, and so I spent the last like few months just hatching over and over again, and eventually getting my own adult bases. And then I started making my own bases and then training them up, and I eventually got this pet. I actually got this pet last night. It was very relieving to get. It was awesome. Yeah, let's quickly go over where to get each piece of gear. Hat, Forbidden Library Gauntlet, or you can buy it in a pack. The robe can drop from Malice, or you can craft it using the Bull Dream Reaver armor, which also drops from Malice, and you can also craft it as well. But you do need the Malice badge for that, which is defeating him 15 times in standard mode. For the boots, this is the Vibrant Parade Shredders, and they are in the Forbidden Library Gauntlet as well, or you can buy them in the pack. The wand, Xander's Focus Staff, is a revered crafting wand, which you get if you go through the crafting quests, and it costs... The big 2 items are the Aether Ore and the Flying Squid Ink. Flying Squid Ink you can farm in Secret Tunnel, and Aether Ore you can farm in the Reverie. It's just that it's that weird dungeon area where there's like the evil Merle Ambrose and the time that you fight like Belloc and the Jabberwock in like that weird dragon-inspired looking area. And this is in Imperia Part 2. Athame, the Reaver Knife, is dropped from the Valencian Fleet fight on the Doom Moon. You can also craft it. The Amulet, so the Nightmare Amulet comes from the Nightmare pack. The Eternal and Spirited Charm comes from Novus. If you get the Inspired Aeon Charm, which drops from the Design Duelist, then you could craft it in a 1-to-1 conversion for the Eternal and Spirited. It's like how you craft the Stalker Robe using the Reaver Robe. You can craft the Eternal Spirited Charm using the Inspired Aeon Charm. Ring, the Reaver Ring drops from Freddy Croker. You can also craft it, but the Reaver Rings are pretty easy drop, so you should get it by the time you get the badge for Freddy Croker. Pet, this is all kiosk and Mega Snacks. Mount, doesn't matter. And the deck is from Mr. Montgomery, but you have to convert it from the Reaver deck, which is this one, the Reaver deck, in a 1-1 conversion. You can also craft the Reaver deck and then swap it for the Stalker deck. I wouldn't recommend that though. And that is how you get all the gear. That is the stats. That is all the gear. That is the 20k health. And yeah, the 66 resist is pretty good. You get 77 with that. Compared to my normal build, I get 61, 203 damage, 15k health, double the crit, a little bit more block, more pierce, same pips and everything. The only main difference is you're missing the extra resist from Defy, and that's because I'm running a quad damage proof pet. If I was running a full quint damage pet, I would have 11 less resist, so I would be at 50 exactly. But that is a 20k health build. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it. I might use it for the Darkmoor team up stuff when I'm farming the bosses, so if you see me when Darkmoor drops and I'm running a 20k health build, you'll know it's me. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.